Good afternoon, guys. It's Working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin to the US dollars, the 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And guys, we can see since November the 20th, price has been creating a series of lower highs, higher lows, getting squeezed. And as we approach the apex of any type of a wedge like this, you expect to break in one direction or another. Now, we just got price breaking out of this wedge here over about, let's see, about 8 hours ago, 6 hours ago, somewhere thereabouts, guys. It just finally broke down. This was acting, or excuse me, the support and or resistance had been acting very, very relevant. I mean, we can see it touched back here quite a few times, came back here, perfect touch, came up, perfect touch here, perfect touch here, and then finally ended up breaking back down. Now, the only good news here is, at least temporarily, price broke down and found support exactly where we would have expected at the top of this area here, this 3,800 zone here, which we had marked out as support for quite some time now. Price briefly broke beneath it, but we can see the body is sitting just above that 3,800 support. And the question is, are we going to hold this? And as of right now, guys, it's it really is not. Let's just look at the whole market. Looking at the whole market here, let me refresh here so we have the big picture as far as volume is concerned. We're sitting at about 5.1 billion. That's relatively low, and if we compare that to what we have been looking at, in fact, let me bring it up here so you guys can see exactly. Let's bring up this historical data. We can see what we have been looking at since we had that spike. We can see that price had been sitting, let's see, prior to that we were sitting between 3 and 4 billion, and then of course we had price where did price break down here? Here we go. Yeah, price finally ended up breaking down right here, and when it did, we had that spike in volume. All these sellers coming in. It went from 3 to 4 billion to 7, 8 billion, 6 billion. Back tapper down for a few days, 4 billion up to 6 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, 6 billion, 6 billion, and now it seems like we're trending back down to where volume seems to be dropping off just a little bit more every single day, and that is not a good sign overall. Now, could that turn around? Absolutely. We more than likely are having a lot of people just taking a reprieve from trading and waiting to see which direction price is going to go. And right now, this could be, it's possible that this is a bear trap to trap people low. In fact, if I come over here and I always look at longs versus short, guys, and remember, this is a zero-sum game, as you guys are sick of me telling you, for someone to make money, someone has to lose money. So looking at longs versus shorts, you want to say which direction our market maker is going to bring price to make the most money. Well, right now, we have shorts versus longs approaching that all-important 30% spread. And 30% is typically where you're going to start to see somewhere between 30 and 35% spread between longs and shorts is where you're going to see either a short squeeze, or you're going to see, depending on which one is stacked. If shorts are stacked, more than likely that's when you're going to start to look for a short squeeze. And in this case, shorts are stacked right around 30% versus longs. In other words, there's about 30% more shorts on the board than there are longs. That being said, which direction would market makers have to bring price to liquidate those short positions? Well, they'd have to bring them up. Now, that being said, we are at the lower end of that spectrum. In other words, we're right at about 30% right now. A lot of times that comes up to about 35%, sometimes even 40%, and then they'll just run a massive squeeze. And of course, it doesn't mean they have to. It just means we're dealing with probability here. So might they bring price down a little bit further? Hopefully, in their mind, hoping to bring shorts all the way up a little bit more. We know in the past, yeah, that's real possible. In fact, if we come over here and we look at the past, we're looking up at all-time highs. We're not at all-time highs yet. We're flirting with them, but we're not at all-time highs yet. So yes, price may come down a little bit further, trying to trap people further into those short positions. That being said, we know that retail investors are getting a lot wiser. In other words, they're taking profits a lot of times, so they run the risk. Market makers run the risk. If they do bring price down here, they run the risk of those short positions taking profit and wiping some of those shorts off the board anyway, again, by them taking profit rather than them being stopped out. And of course, market makers want to stop you out because that's how they're going to make money. So what we're going to be watching very closely is this zone here between 3,800 and 3,600. That was the prior low back here. I mean, we had this wick down here, but we can see, looking at the body, that was the main body, that was the main structure that needed to get penetrated, and that held on this last drop. And it's going to be very important that this holds again. If we remain in this zone, guys, then I think more than likely, we're going to come back down, get a, more than likely this is just a bear trap. And this zone here, guys, is if we come down here and we get consolidation in this zone, more than likely this is going to be a bear trap, and this thing is going to come flying right back up. Now, if this thing breaks down, if we get a 4-hour candle that both opens and closes below 3,600, below this zone that we have marked out here. So if we get a decisive break below 3,600, again, by decisive, I mean a 4-hour candle opening and closing below 3,600, I think at that point, very, very likely we are coming down to much lower prices. And at that point, we're going to be looking at that 3,000, possibly a $3,000 Bitcoin. Now, we do have a little bit of support between 3,400 and 3,250. So we could find a reversal right there. We could just come down, create a lower low. We can see we created a price has been coming down, creating a lower low. It could be one more lower low down here and then a reversal. That's a real possibility, guys. That 3,200, between 34 and 3,200, of course, is going to be the last stand before we're falling back down, of course, to that $3,000 Bitcoin. So we'll watch that zone. But of course, if 3,600 does break down, guys, that's not a real strong support between 34 and 3,250. It's really not a very strong support. So there's a very good probability if we decisively break below 3,600. And again, I don't mean by a wick. We've broken through by a wick before, but a decisive break, a 4-hour candle opening and closing below 3,600, I think there's a real good possibility that we're coming down to that $3,000, at least that $3,000 Bitcoin that a lot of people have been calling for. And we know that's very strong support. Between 3,000 and about 2,500, there's a lot of support. That would be where I'd be looking for a massive reversal. That being said, could it go lower? Yes, it's possible that it could go lower. There's no question. There's a lot of support between 1,200 and 1,000. I've showed you guys in the past. In fact, for those of you that missed it, I'll just blow up the big picture here real quick. I'll bring up the monthly chart. I showed you guys on one of my last few updates. I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before that. But I told you guys if November's monthly candle closed below 4,300, why 4,300? Because we see that was a very good order block, very good structure that was created all the way back in September and October of last year. So I said if we broke below that 3,200, and we did, it closed below that 3,200, I think there's a very good chance that we're going to possibly come back down to this zone, which sits at about 3,000 to 2,500. And of course, right now, looking at this monthly chart, it's extremely bearish looking. We closed below this 4,300 support, came back up. It's been unable to break back into it. So in other words, we broke below, come back up for the retest. What was support seems to be acting as resistance right now, which means that if that ends up being the case, that we get a strong rejection here, there's a very good chance we're coming back down to that $3,000 Bitcoin that we were just talking about, possibly even lower than that. But as of right now, guys, there's still a chance we could break above, so we're going to be watching. But this monthly chart right now looks extremely bearish. What I was talking about before and why I referenced the possible $1,200 Bitcoin, we know that this is an area of support right down here between 3,000 and 2,500, a little bit lower than that even. So we know this is a very logical place for a reversal, and this is where I'd put my money on a reversal if we do come any lower. I don't expect it to go lower than this. That being said, it is, as I told you guys last time, it is possible, and I always want you guys to know what's possible. And I think a hard bottom, as I showed you guys in the past, I think this would be a hard bottom, right between about 12 and 11, about 1,100 and 1,200. This is what I would call a hard bottom. Why? Because we saw that price came up, found resistance right here back in 2013, broke back down for a couple years, came back up, found resistance again, broke back down, and then just broke through with a vengeance and went on that massive bull run up to 20,000. So this is a very hard bottom in my opinion. This acted as resistance, came back down, started acting as support twice before it took off. So very likely, I think this is a very hard bottom. I would go in very heavy if we ever get down here. And I'm not saying this is a probability, guys. It's not a probability. I do not think that it's probable we're coming down here, but it is possible. It is possible, and if we've learned anything in this market, we know that it is extremely difficult to predict. And you want to make sure you know what is possible, so you can prepare for all scenarios. You want to make sure you have fiat on the side if we ever do get down to this point. So anyway, just something I wanted to point out to you guys and remind for those of you that missed my last update. All right, zooming in here on the hourly chart, guys, we can see that if we go point to point, we look at this little microstructure here, we can see price created a lower low. If we go point to point here on the histogram, we can see price created a higher low, albeit a very small one, but nonetheless a smaller higher low nonetheless. So that is a very small amount of bullish divergence, which tells me we can see that we're oversold here on the 1 hour RSI, well oversold on the 1 hour RSI. Wouldn't be surprised to see price come back up and retest this this resistance. And if we get a strong rejection off this resistance again, if we come back and retest that about 3950 to 4,000 and get a strong rejection, I do think it's going to break back down with a vengeance. So really, this is kind of the last stand before price possibly goes much lower. We're just going to have to watch and wait and see kind of how this ends up playing out, guys. But right now, kind of we're really at that last the last stand before things could get very ugly very quickly. All right, very quickly looking at our moving averages and exponential moving averages, we can see we broke well below the 50-day. This is on the 4-hour chart. We can see we broke well below the 50-day moving average. We're finding some support right on those 4-hour Bollinger Bands, bottom of the 4-hour Bollinger Bands, guys. Not getting a very strong reaction at all, which again is kind of a bearish sign. We do have a little bit of a price broke through here, a little bit of a wick right here, guys, but no real strong reaction, no real bounce here at all. Doesn't mean we can't get that, guys. It just means as of right now, things are looking a little bit weak, obviously. Looking at the daily chart, guys, we can see we broke again well below this 8-day EMA, was acting as support, and just completely collapsed right below, coming back down, looking at the bottom of this order block right back here, guys, as we told you, right at that 3,800. Really is, guys, if this does break down, we can see that the lower daily Bollinger Band coincides very nicely with that $3,000 support. So again, if this does break down, guys, this is also another reason to suggest or to suspect that we'd be coming down to that $3,000 Bitcoin. Not saying it's going to happen, guys, just saying that you want to be prepared. You absolutely always want to be prepared. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there, guys. Really, we're going to be watching 3,800 and watching 4,000. If we can break above, back up 4,000, back above 4,000 with consolidation, in other words, not by a wick, but a strong break, decisive break above 4,000, we may get a nice reversal, and we may have seen the bear trap, and we may be turning back around and heading on at least a temporary bull run, trying to get those, trying to liquidate those short positions. If we break below 3,800, guys, things get ugly very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote if you have enjoyed this content. Until next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Working, signing out.